Hi, thank you so much for coming to this valuation documentation video. My name is Stephanie Agaton Michaels. I am the founder and CEO of the Stephanie Michaels Software Company. We are the creators of the Univah Film Engine, the Univah Film Engine SDK, Religion VFX, and our awesome character creator coming soon called Make Me. In this video, we're going to share with you how we were able to identify the correct valuation for our software company at a pre-seed, pre-revenue stage. It's very important for founders to remove all ego when valuating their companies. We often make the mistake of either drastically overvaluing our company or we make the mistake of undervaluing our company. So, I'm going to show you how using two different AI applications and just also our own common sense and knowing the value of what we've created, we were able to come to a pretty much unanimous understanding of what the value of our company at this current stage is. Now, I'm recording this video on August 12th, 2016. Okay, so the date today is Wednesday, August 12th, 2026. Not 2016. Today is August 12th, Wednesday, 2026. Okay, all right. So right now we're looking at Gemini, and I'm using these AI tools because I know that these are the tools that a lot of you and other business owners are also going to use. And it's super important to know how to use these tools if you're going to be trying to get information on a company. You have to really know how to push these tools so that you get the right information because there's a lot of information out there that these tools like Gemini and especially ChatGPT just don't have the information to. So, what I recommend to all venture capitalists who are going to do this, you're not really going to be able to get the accurate information from Gemini and from ChatGPT if you are not in contact with the founders of these companies. So, what I recommend is let the founders of the companies do this thing that I'm about to do right now because the founders, the creators of these products, they are the ones, we are the ones that know exactly how much work we have put into the product, into the company. We are the ones that know what to feed into these AI apps in order to get you the right valuation for our companies. You simply being a venture capitalist looking from the outside in, you don't have the full story. So if you don't have the full story, how are you going to feed into AI and know what to give it in order to get the correct valuation? Okay. So that's number one. A lot of you are not getting accurate information because, quite frankly, you don't know the product well enough in order to know what to feed into AI and how to argue with AI because AI is often wrong. So, I'm going to show you how to get accurate information about our company, and I'm going to show you exactly what I typed and what I told it. Okay. Now, before we get started, let's look at Gemini. And this is what Gemini came to the conclusion of. Okay. It says, based on everything that you've built, validated, and proven from the institutional deployments at Houston City College and the unscripted studio tests with professional artists to the zero cloud architecture yielding 95% plus margins and true deep tech replacement costs for far exceeding basic software. Univah's solid valuation baseline today sits firmly between 25 million and 50 million, pre-seed, pre-revenue. Okay? So that's what Gemini came to the conclusion of based on what we told it. Okay. If you just go to Gemini and say, hey, Gemini, what is the value of Univah? It's not going to know that. Okay. So that's where a lot of you are getting messed up. If you just go to Gemini and you say, hey, what's the value of Univah Film Engine? It doesn't have all of the information to give you that. Okay, so it's going to give you a really basic number like 5 million or 2 million or 1 million. Okay, so how in the world did we get to 25 to 50 million plus, even 10 million, 100 million? Okay, because depending on what I put in here, it's going to continue to raise the valuation. Okay, so how does it get to 25 million, 50 million? I will show you. So let's go to ChatGPT. And in ChatGPT, ironically, because ChatGPT is really difficult, ChatGPT is one of like my least favorite AI apps to use because all it does is it argues and argues and argues. It just always, it's very disagreeable. It never agrees with you no matter what you say. So that's why I also like to show what ChatGPT tells you, because if ChatGPT, which is one of the most difficult AI apps, it's very disagreeable. So when you can get a disagreeable app to agree with Gemini that yes, the Univah Film Engine, based on what I tell it it can do and show it, is worth 50 million pre-seed pre-revenue, then you know that you have something legitimate here, because that's two different applications agreeing on 50 million valuation. Okay, so I'm going to share with you the conversation that I had, and I'm going to try to make this video as short as possible. Okay, I'm going to try to keep it under 30 minutes. So here we are now in ChatGPT, and I'm going to also probably just provide the link to this conversation. I don't really know how it works, but I think if I share the link to this conversation with you guys, you will be able, if you have ChatGPT downloaded on your phone, you should be able to read this exact conversation if I provide the link to you, which I will. Okay, so here's how I started the conversation. I try to be as unbiased as possible, and I try not to ask any leading questions. I just ask as a regular person would ask, okay? So the first thing that we did was to try to establish some sort of grounding context, okay? So we start by asking, hey, chat, about how much do you think it costs Microsoft to develop the Photos app? So you guys all have a Windows computer, and you know that Microsoft uh, is responsible for the Windows operating system. And we all know that the Windows operating system comes with some pre-made, pre-installed applications. One of those pre-installed applications is the Windows Photos app. The Windows Photos app is what makes it possible for you to view your photos. So whenever you double click on a photo on your computer and it pops up, that is the Windows Photos app that you're viewing your photos with. Without that app, if you were to double click on your photos, nothing would happen. Okay. So the Windows Photos app that comes with every computer, how much does it cost to develop that? Because it's a very simple application. All it does is it shows you your photos. That's it. Okay. So how much does it cost Microsoft to develop that? Now here's what ChatGPT says. It says Microsoft doesn't publish specific budget for photos, but we can make a reasonable estimate. Microsoft had about 80,000 employees in product R&D in 2025 and spent about 32 billion on R&D that year. Wow. So in just 2025, apparently Microsoft spent about 32 billion on research and development just that year. Okay. Photos has been continuously developed for years, of course, with engineers working on things like photo indexing, editing, iCloud, OneDrive integration, AI features, performance, accessibility, testing, and Windows integration. Okay, the current app has gone through a major platform migration from UWP to Windows App SDK. Okay, so it says the ballpark estimate, initial major development for Windows Photos would be between 10 to 30 million to develop something as simple as the Windows Photos app. Several years of development plus redesigns, 50 to 150 million. Again, to develop something as simple as the Windows Photos app. Total lifetime engineering support costs possibly 100 to 300 plus million. And that's Microsoft internal cost, not what it would cost a normal company to build something similar. Okay. Very important that I love that ChatGPT says this, because it's talking about Microsoft, which is a big company. Big companies are very bloated. They have like 100-person teams. Okay. So here now for comparison, it says for comparison, if you ask a small software company like my company, for instance, to recreate today's Microsoft photos from scratch, with the Windows integration, AI features, cloud services, photo indexing, editing, etc., I'd expect 5 to 20 million for a serious first version. So that's interesting. It says if you were to ask a small startup software company to make or to recreate the Photos app, it would cost between 5 to 20 plus million for a serious version 1. Okay, so keep that in mind, guys. And this is for Photos. Photos is probably the most basic app that you could ever make. And they are saying it would cost a small company 5 to 20 plus million just to do that. Just to do that. Okay. And then if you're talking about now a big company like Microsoft, you're looking at 50 to 150 million or 100 million to 300 million just for Photos. So keep that in mind. Okay. All right. Now, let's that's a very good baseline, okay? Because we're about to talk about something as sophisticated and complex as the Univah Film Engine, okay? So if it's costing a small company 20 million just to make photos, or 5 to 20 million just to make photos, if it's costing Microsoft 100 to 300 million just for photos, you can now start to just think ahead of time. What do you think the replacement cost for the Univah Film Engine might be? To create something as advanced, something that is deep tech, Univah is deep tech, to create something like that, what would it cost Microsoft to build Univah from scratch? What would it cost Autodesk to build Univah from scratch? What would it cost Epic Games to build something like Univah from scratch? What would it cost Adobe to build something like Univah, a Univah competitor, from scratch? That's what I want you to think about. If it costs this much for photos, I asked it about photos because photos, like the Windows calculator, are pretty much the most basic apps that you could possibly make. It doesn't get any more basic than the calculator app. You have the calculator app, you have the Windows text editor app where you can type text, you have the Windows Photos app, Windows Media Player app. All of these things that you see in Windows, okay, that come with the Windows OS, all of these apps are inside Univah Film Engine. So you have to also understand that Univah Film Engine has a photo viewer inside of Univah. And if it costs Microsoft 50 million or 10 to 30 million just to make a photo viewer, and the Univah Film Engine has a photo viewer inside of it. So think about that. Then, if you want to go even more complex, you look at the Windows Media Player that plays videos. Well, guess what? Doesn't Univah have a video player? In Univah, can't you play videos? You can import an MP4 video and play it in the Univah video player. Univah has a video player that plays AVI videos, MP4 videos, including sound. And you can fast forward, you can rewind, you can pause, and it loops. You can put the video on loop. Univah does all of these things inside of Univah. So that's now two apps. That's two Microsoft apps that Univah has inside of its own engine. It can view photos and it can play videos. Okay. Okay. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. Um, okay. So all of this is now just talking about estimates. Okay. Core Photos team, 3 to 6 million. Supporting engineers team, 2 to 8 million. Infrastructure testing operations, 1 to 5 million. Management security localization estimate, 2 to 6 million. Total attributed costs, 8 to 25 million a year just for photos. Just for photos. Okay. All right. So ChatGPT gives us a good estimate of what Microsoft might be spending just for photos. We're not even talking about the Windows Media Player. That's a totally different app. you have photos, and then you have the video player. Okay. All right. Then you have calculator. So you have all these different apps, and all of this money is going into these very basic apps. Okay. So now I'm going to ask it. I said, so do you know of the Univah Film Engine? And ironically, this is why I keep telling you guys, if you're using ChatGPT, you have to really push ChatGPT, because ChatGPT does not have a lot of current information. Okay. And because our software is so new, a lot of times I've asked ChatGPT about Univah, and it straight up told me Univah does not exist. I kid you not. A lot of times I have told ChatGPT to tell me about Univah, and it responded and said, Univah does not exist. I do not know of anything called Univah. So if you get that response, that just goes to show you there is a lot that ChatGPT does not know. There's a lot of information out there that AI does not just automatically give you. You have to really push and pry for that information before you get it. Okay, so look at what it says here after we're done talking about Microsoft Photos. I said, so you know of Univah Film Engine? And look at what Chat says. Chat GPT says, I don't recognize. So it says, I don't recognize Univah Film Engine as a well-known commercial film video engine off the top of my head. So and that's a much better response that I typically get. Usually what I get is that does not even exist. I remember like last week I typed, hey, tell me about Univah, and it says Univah does not exist. So it'll either tell you Univah doesn't exist at all, or it'll say something more sophisticated like, I don't recognize Univah Film Engine as a well-known commercial product. Okay. So here's what I'm going to say. I said, well, you should be able to Google it, chat. That's your job. Just Google it and then you'll know about it. Okay. So I pushed back by telling it to Google it, because that's what it should have done instead of saying this right here. Okay, so AI should never say this. It should never ever say this. But if it says this to you, then you have to push it and tell it, well, Google it. If you Google it, you're going to find out about it. Okay, so ChatGPT laughs and says, haha, yeah, you're right. Fair point. I should have Googled it. I did. And yes, Univah Film Engine is a real software product. Okay, so finally, after forcing it to do its job, then ChatGPT says, oh, wow, Univah is real. Look at the images. It's so beautiful. Wow. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So here it's going to describe what Univah is. We're going to skip all of that. Okay, so now it says, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. And actually, given we're just discussing how much Microsoft spends, I suspect you're about to ask me something interesting about how much it would cost to develop Univah. Yes, correct. That's exactly what I was about to ask. Okay, so I said, okay, what do you think something like Univah would cost to remake from scratch by a big company like Microsoft? Okay, so now we're getting into the meat and bones of things. Okay, let's see how much time we've got. Good. All right. So ChatGPT now responds and says, yeah, after actually looking at what Univah is trying to be, I would raise the estimate a lot compared with Microsoft Photos discussion. Univah isn't really a normal application. So this is interesting because now ChatGPT starts to say Univah is not normal. Univah is very different. It's a different kind of beast. So it says here, Univah isn't really a normal application. I love that. Its public description includes a proprietary real-time renderer, physically based lighting, large world rendering, volumetrics, physics, animation, procedural VFX, motion graphics through religion VFX, FBX interoperability, I can't say that word, and a complete artist-facing DCC style interface. Wow. So now here it's going to tell us what it would cost Microsoft. If Microsoft rebuilt Univah completely from scratch, my rough estimate would be basic prototype 10 to 30 million, functional professional product 50 to 150 million, full Univah level product 150 to 400 million, serious Unreal Maya competitor 500 million to 1 billion. Okay, now of course I already knew this, but I'm making this video so that you guys can know. Okay. All right. So this is pretty accurate. This is what we've always said that Univah is at this level, the $500 million level, because we know what it costs a big company to create something like Univah. We know how many years it's going to cost. We know the R&D is going to take, and because Univah is so unique, it's not like any software made. That's a lot of R&D they're going to have to do in order to match what we have. Okay, so it's not something you're just going to go to AI and AI is going to spit out a Univah, a Univah competitor. It's not good. AI cannot do that because Univah is so unique. It's something that's never been done before, and so you're going to have to do a lot of R&D to match what Univah is. It's going to take years. Okay, you can count on it. So it says here, my best guess for a Microsoft quality recreation of today's Univah would be 200 to 300 million. Okay, so that's about a good replacement cost. So when you're evaluating your product, a lot of times it's not just about how much revenue has it made, how many users do you have. When you're looking at a pre-seed, pre-revenue product, you have to look at the disruption, the replacement costs, and you have to look at the IP, where now we're looking at the intellectual property, the value. Okay. Okay. And that's assuming Microsoft is building its own technology. Exactly. Rather than simply embedding Unreal Engine or licensing using existing rendering technology. Exactly. It's because what makes Universe so different and so valuable is that we wrote our own rendering technology from scratch. We did not borrow even a single line of code from Unreal Engine. We did not borrow anything from Unity. We don't have anything to do with Blender. We have nothing to do with Godot or Octane Render, or we have nothing to do with V-Ray. We've never used Arno. We don't have anything to do with Redshift because all those technologies rely on ray tracing. It's all ray tracing, even the ones that claim they're real time. It's all ray tracing, and these days it's all trying to be AI, and we don't want anything to do with AI or ray tracing. We don't want anything to do with that. So our goal with the Univah Film Engine was to get away from all these slow rendering processes. AI is so slow. AI is incredibly slow and heavy and clunky, and it requires so much GPU processing power and cooling. It's so expensive if you want to run it locally. It's so expensive. You need a monster computer if you want to run it locally. That's why everything is done in the cloud. And cloud rendering, you're always on a queue. There's a waiting line. If you're doing anything with the cloud, you have to get on the queue. You have to wait for your turn. It takes a long time to generate a 5-second video. So yeah, we don't want anything to do with cloud rendering. We don't, Univah is going in the complete opposite direction. We want 100% independence and local rendering. Okay, so that's what we focus on: 100% local rendering, 100% independent from the cloud, 100% zero AI, nothing to do with ray tracing, absolutely nothing. So that the viewport is always clean, always fresh, no graininess. That's what we're all about. Okay. So for another company to want to create something like Univah that has those specific, that solves that problem, yeah, that's why it's $1 billion tool. Okay, that's why you see this. This is why it's so high. Okay, okay, and then it's saying, yeah, that's assuming Microsoft wants to build its own technology, because as you know, most companies, they're not building their own technology. We are so rare. The Stephanie Microsoft company is so rare because we did what most people don't want to do. They don't want to build their own technology. They just want to use Unreal Engine. They want to use Unreal Engine. They want to use Unity. They want to use CryEngine, and they want to build on top of that. Okay, so uh, if you're going to do your own technology, it takes more time. Okay, it's more R&D, more research. So, why it's so much more expensive than Photos? With Photos, Microsoft can rely heavily on existing Windows infrastructure. With Univah, you're talking about engineering things like rendering engine, GPU systems, materials, shaders, lighting, shadows, volumetrics, animation, physics, procedural systems, scene world management. Oh, yeah. Asset importing, UI editor, cameras, timeline sequencing, file formats, optimization. Ooh, that's a big one. we spend a lot of time on optimization so that Univah can run on even a GTX 1050 and make big scenes on even a GTX 1050. A lot of time spent on optimization so that even if you don't have a dedicated GPU, Univah runs beautifully on even integrated graphics. So yeah, doing the research for optimization and implementing optimization so that our software doesn't crash on integrated graphics PCs. Yeah, crash recovery and testing. So you're looking at all of this stuff that you have to figure out if you're going to try to build something like Univah. Okay. And the really expensive part is the renderer and the underlining engine. Exactly. Univah specifically describes itself as being built from the ground up with its own real time procedural VFX motion graphics technology rather than simply being a conventional plugin. Exactly. For perspective, Unreal itself has an enormous amount of technology behind it, including systems such as Lumen and Nanite for real time film quality workflows. And Microsoft could throw a lot of people at it. Imagine Microsoft putting 50 to 100 engineers, 20 to 40 tools, UI programmers, 10 to 20 technical artists, 10 to 20 QA test engineers, 10 plus managers, PMs, security infrastructure, build systems, localization, etc. on it for 5 years. So imagine getting a team of all these people for 5 years just to recreate the Univah Film Engine. That's a lot of money, okay? That's a lot of salaries, okay? So you could easily have 100 to 200 plus people contributing at various points. Exactly. Exactly. And that's actually accurate because in the lifespan of the 6 years that I've been in development of Univah, that's about as many people as we did actually hire. We have worked with over 100 developers to make this product possible. So when I tell you guys this, it's the truth. I hired so many people that worked on various parts of the project. I give them small tasks. This one did that task. This one did that task. They get paid, they leave. I hire another guy. They do a small task. They get paid, they leave. That's how that's how we worked on this thing. So at Microsoft scale, the salaries are only part of the equation. You're paying for highly specialized graphics engineers, development infrastructures, hardware labs, testing, management, recruiting, and years of iteration. So something like 150 people times 300K fully loaded average cost times 5 years equals 250. Yeah, exactly. Almost 300 million. Okay. So 200 to 300 million is pretty believable number to recreate the Univers Film Engine. Okay, on a small level. Okay, okay, so I put my money around 250 million with a reasonable range of roughly 100 to 400 million. Okay, that's dramatically more expensive than Microsoft Photos, exactly. Okay, so here I say, oh, I see. Would you say that's about what Autodesk or Epic Games or even Adobe would spend too if they wanted to build a Univah type of tool totally from scratch to compete? So, this is what a lot of the investors, if they're going to invest in your company or your product, a lot of times they want to know who your competitors are. And a lot of times they want to know how difficult or easy it would be to replace you. So the replacement cost is super important to an investor. Um, and if your software or your tool is easy to replicate by a big company that has significantly more resources than you, then um, you can pretty much count on the fact that you will be ripped off. Okay, so that's the question that I'm asking here. I'm asking what I know the investor is going to want to know. So I said, if Autodesk or Epic Games or Adobe wanted to create Univers from scratch, about how much would it cost? And so ChatGPT says yes, roughly, but the number would vary a lot depending on the company and how ambitious the product is. If Autodesk, Epic, or Adobe said, forget our existing technology, we're going to build a Univah like film engine completely from scratch and make it a serious professional product, I would estimate something like this. Autodesk would spend roughly between 200 to 500 million, closest existing enterprise in professional 3D DCC tools. Yeah. So anywhere between 200 to 500 million to recreate Univah. Epic Games would spend anywhere from 250 to 600 million to build a Univah replacement from scratch. If they wanted to do it from scratch, it would probably cost more. Okay. Adobe uh, would spend anywhere from 300 to 700 million because they would need to build much more underlying real-time tech from scratch. Okay. Microsoft would spend 200 to 500 million roughly. Okay. So um, these are these are the interesting projections from each company what they would probably spend if they wanted to compete with Univah, building something from scratch. Okay, so if Epic wanted to create a new Univah competitor, they wouldn't necessarily need to spend 300 million just to reach Univah's level because they already have Unreal Engine. It would probably just go toward a lot of research to figure out how Univah is doing what it's doing at such a small footprint because as you know Unreal Engine is like a 100 or 200 gigabyte download. Univah is under 1 gig and we're getting superior rendering quality, so they have to figure out how we're doing that. Okay. Okay, but if you literally mean build an entirely new engine independent of Unreal from zero and make it competitive with Univah, then 200 to 600 million is believable, especially over 5 to 8 years. So this is what it's telling you. It says in 5 to 8 years, about $600 million is a believable cost that a big company would spend if they wanted to create something new. Again, to create something new from scratch to compete with Univah. Okay. All right. So with that said, I want you to think about what the value of Univah is. This should really start to put things into perspective for you about the value of the Univah Film Engine. This is not some cheap little tool. It's a very disruptive software. Okay. All right. So it says here Autodesk might actually be the most natural competitor, right? Because Autodesk has Maya, they have 3D Studio Max, they understand the film industry. I love Autodesk. If if Autodesk wanted to acquire us, I would absolutely say yes to Autodesk. I really admire all of what they've done with Maya, with 3D Studio Max, with AutoCAD. They're a very serious company. I love what they do. Okay, so I have no issue with Autodesk. If they wanted to acquire us, I would be more so interested in them acquiring us than any other company, either them or Adobe. Okay. Okay. And I've said before, I would never sell to Unreal Engine. So if Unreal Engine wanted to acquire Univah Film Engine, that's a hard no. That's a hard pass. Uh, Tim Sweeney would have to really convince me and assure me that he's not just going to acquire Univah just to bury it. Because if you're just trying to acquire Univah just to bury it because you're afraid of Unreal Engine having competition, obviously I'm going to say no. Okay. So, and if you're just trying to acquire Univah and then put it in the back burner while you focus all your energy on Unreal Engine, I'm going to say no. So if anyone wants to acquire this product, the only way I'm saying yes is if you're going to prioritize the development and the continuous improvement of the Univah Film Engine as its own standalone infrastructure, because that is what it is being built to become. It is its own ecosystem. It is its own infrastructure. It is not meant to be merged into anyone else's infrastructure. It is not meant to become a game engine. It is not meant to become anything else. It is a film engine. It is a native, independent film engine, and it should remain that because that is what it is. Filmmakers deserve their own tool. It should not be merged into anything else. It should remain a standalone, powerful film production ecosystem infrastructure for filmmakers. And that is what the Film Engine SDK should be as well for graphics programmers. Okay, so very important that anyone who's looking at future acquisitions, they understand. I will say no. I absolutely will say no. If you come to me with some, you know, ideas about acquisitions and you're just trying to bury my tool, you're just going to bury the software. After all this work that we've done, uh, I will not accept anyone acquiring us just to bury us. Absolutely not. Okay. The film industry deserves this tool. Don't do this to the film industry. Okay. So, no, I will not accept that. All right. So Adobe would have the hardest job, yes, because they're going to have to develop all this stuff. They're going to have to understand all of this stuff, which I don't know if they do, but yes. Okay. The really crazy part, if you told one of these companies, yeah, $1 billion, yes, okay. So so here's the question that I asked. I said, wow, but Univah is pre-revenue and pre-seed. Do they still have value? Now, this is a good question to ask because a lot of times people assume that your value comes from how many users you have. And if you don't have hundreds of thousands of users, therefore, how can you claim a high valuation? And so I'm asking this question for your benefit so that you can see how ChatGPT explains this. I say Univah is pre revenue and pre seed. Does it still have value? And ChatGPT says, absolutely. Pre revenue and pre seed does not mean worthless. It means the company is being valued primarily on its IP, technology, team, traction, and future potential rather than current revenue. I actually looked up Univers specifically, and there is an important detail. The company says the engine has been self funded. Okay. And it has been deployed in 15 workstations at Houston City College Reality Collab, and reports demonstrate feedback from people with backgrounds at Disney, 20th Century Fox. Yes, that's true. So, what is the Univers actually worth? I'd separate current startup valuation from strategic acquisition value. Okay. The company's stated value, 5 million valuation. That's because we are being conservative. Okay. Now, it says, think of it this way. If we estimated that recreating a comparable system would cost 200 to 400 million and take 8 years, an acquisition for, say, 20 to 50 million could theoretically be extremely attractive to a large company, even if Univa currently makes almost no money. Okay, so you see it here. This is how it's thinking of. It says, if we estimate that recreating a comparable system, so if we estimate that to recreate Univah from scratch would cost a big company anywhere from 200 million to 400 million, and it would take them 5 to 8 years, then an acquisition for about 20 to 50 million could theoretically be extremely attractive to a large company, even if Univah currently makes almost no money, because the buyer isn't saying we're buying zero revenue. They're saying we're buying technology that might save us hundreds of millions and several years of development. That's a completely different valuation framework. And Univer's own materials specifically say the engine was built from scratch rather than using Unity, Unreal, or Blender plugins, and that its proprietary Religion VFX system is core technology. Okay, so here's what it says now. It says, but there is a big catch. You have to understand that the code has to be scalable. And that's true. A lot of times, the reason why acquisitions fail, the reason why a lot of tools end up not having a big valuation is because you try to use the tool, you get into the code, and you realize the code is written in a really bad way. It's not scalable, it's not modular, it's not non destructive. So, all of these things we've already made sure that Univah is scalable. Univah, the code behind the Univah Film Engine is written in such a way that anybody who is an experienced graphics programmer can get into our backend, they can get into our source code, and they can start working in our software, in our source code in just 3 days. So it really takes just 3 days to onboard a new developer. That's incredible. Okay. So we have tested this over and over. I have hired so many developers, and it took me no more than 3 days for them to catch on, to understand the infrastructure, to understand the architecture, and to start working with the source code. It doesn't take more than 3 days. And to really understand a lot of the systems, because we have so many different systems, okay, maybe a week. Okay, but you don't have to know the whole architecture. You just need to know specific parts of the code that you're going to work on, right? And that takes less than 3 days. Okay, so is the code scalable? Yes, the Univah Film Engine is scalable. The architecture needs major rewriting. If it needs major rewriting, we've already rewritten it. I told you guys many years ago, we had to rewrite Univah 4 times to get it to what it is now. Okay, the first version of Univah was not good. The second version of Univah was even worse. The third version of Univah, the third try, it was just messy. So we had to rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it before we got to a production level, commercial level software that you see today. So what it is now is excellent. But before, yeah, it had to be written, and we did all of that hard work already. Okay, so now it's scalable, doesn't need major rewriting. And if there are parts that need to be rewritten, we do that ourselves. There aren't many users. Market doesn't adopt it. So again, yeah, you have to have a product that the market wants to adopt. You have to have a product that has users. Okay, people have to want to use your tool. Okay, the IP isn't adequately protected. So this one is huge. This one is very huge. That's why you guys have been seeing me in lawsuits recently. I've been in lawsuits. I've been filing copyright takedown video. I've been taking people's videos down. I've been addressing trademark infringement. Why do you think I'm doing all of this? I search the internet for people that are trying to copy and steal our work, and I attack them. I go after them. I make sure YouTube takes their videos down. I go after these people fiercely, because this is how you protect your IP. If you don't protect your IP, why will any investor want to invest in you? Okay, so I make sure that anyone that's trying to rip us off, I attack them deeply. Okay, I discourage it so other people don't try it. The company can't demonstrate repeatable performance. Exactly. This is very important. Okay. Or a large company can reproduce the important parts more cheaply than expected. Exactly. This is called having no moat. If you create a product, and this is what I was telling a lot of people that brag about AI, if you create a product and it's easy to replicate, you have literally no moat. You're going to be ripped off, and you're going to go out of business very quickly, because a large company is just going to look at what you did, and they're just going to use AI to copy you. Okay, so you have to make sure you create a product that's not easy to rip off. Okay, so the current fundraising valuation. Okay, so here I say, this is what I said to chat. I said, if it's been installed in 15 schools, if it sorry, excuse me, if it's been installed in schools and over 15 beta testers downloaded it, installed it on their machines, and it works, then two major studios tried it and it works. What does that say about it? And here's what ChatGPT says. Chat says yes, if those facts are accurate and can be independently substantiated, that changes the picture quite a bit. Okay. So it's basically saying here that it's very significant that Univah is a commercial tool. It's very significant that other people outside the developer are able to download Univah, enter a license key, and the license key is validated. Having a completely working licensing system is more valuable than you think. And that's what ChatGPT is saying here. It's very significant that other people can purchase the product right now. Anyone can purchase the product, and there's a completely automated licensing system, so that you don't need a human being that is manually, creating licenses every time someone wants to buy the software. Everything has already been written to be automated. and I can validate a license, I can cancel a license, I can delete a license, I can extend a license, I can block a license that's been violating our terms and conditions. I can do all of these things from my backend system that I wrote myself. And so that also increases our valuation because that tells the investor we're not just some software tool. We are an enterprise ready system that is ready to scale as large as possible. We can have 2 million users today, and every single one of them is going to get a license. Every single one of them has a key, and it's a unique key. And we have hardware binding so that one license, if you buy one license, it cannot be used on two computers. If you buy three licenses, if you buy three seats, you buy one license, you buy three seats, it can be used on three computers. If you try to use it on four computers, it will block it. It's going to block the fourth. So things, all these things, these are the kinds of things that separate a a wannabe developer from a company. So the fact that we have a complete enterprise level licensing system with hardware binding, it controls how many seats, how many computers that a license, it will track it. It knows, hey, you bought a license that has three seats. Why are you trying to install on four computers? It will say no to the fourth try. It will let you install on exactly three computers. On the fourth try, it will say no. You're going to have to uninstall from one of those computers. And then, so that everything is working perfectly. It's already written, it tracks it, it's been tested, it works. So, um, yeah, so that's not insignificant. That definitely also raises our valuation. So, I'm going to let you guys read all of this because it just talks about how incredibly amazing it is that Univah has all of these things already done. A lot of what people think makes a company a pre-seed valuation. The reason the valuation is so much higher is because we've done already a lot of the commercial stuff that people seek an investor to do. So we're not seeking an investor to make our product commercial ready. It's already commercial ready. We're not seeking an investor so that we can write a licensing system. We already have a licensing system. We anyone can download our tool and use it on any Windows computer. Okay, so all of these things, that's what it's talking about here. Uh, yes. So that's what it says here. It says the licensing backend is actually a bigger deal than it sounds. So it says here an investor isn't buying the graphics engine. They're potentially buying a software business that is already capable of selling the engine without someone manually processing every customer. Exactly. So we have a completely automated licensing system, fully written, and it works. I've tested it like crazy. It works. Okay. So if 100 people right now go to the Univah Film Engine website and they buy Univah for $27, every single one of them gets a different license, and they can choose how many seats they want to buy per license. Okay. So all of that's built. That puts us in a completely different tier from a lot of these people who make GitHub projects. How many of them with GitHub projects have something like this? They do not. Okay. They have a project on a GitHub repo and they have to manually, they don't have an installer, they don't have a licensing system, they don't have any of these infrastructure, ecosystem type stuff that we have. Okay. So we have a real commercial product. Okay. And so here it's talking about how unique it is that we have a rendering system that has photorealistic capabilities without ray tracing. And it's saying that people are going to have to figure out how is it achieving that? How are we achieving such high quality with no ray tracing? How? Okay, what GPU is being used? What resolution? What frame rate? What scene complexity? All of these things. Okay. So, um, I have to end the video here because we're going on 1 hour, but that's why it's saying that we have a very high valuation because of all of what Univah can do and what it's capable of. And this is why uh, a typical venture capitalist they're not going to be able to get this same response because they're not going to know what to say to ChatGPT about our company. If they don't understand what we've built and all of what we've done, they don't know what to put in here. And if they don't know what to put in here, they're not going to know how to get the right valuation. Okay. And they're not going to understand why we're so disruptive. You have to speak to the founders. You have to speak to the founders. The founders have to tell you everything they've done. Then you take that, you put it into AI. AI will tell you what that means. Okay. Okay. So here I upload some pictures. I say, okay, if you're saying it's little true. Okay. So here's what I did. I said, I uploaded these two pictures and I said, it produces indistinguishable from real life, renders directly in the real time viewport. And then here's what ChatGPT says. It says, uh, if what you're saying is literally true, if these are the actual real-time viewport frames rather than pre-rendered images being displayed inside the viewport, then Univah is doing something technically significant. Wow. So again, you keep hearing them say, if we're not lying, okay, because people do lie. A lot of people, they claim something is real time, but it's not. It's pre-rendered, it's pre-baked. They have a bunch of post-processing done to the image, and then they lie and show you something and claim it's real time, but it's not. It was pre-rendered. So that's why it's saying here, it's saying if you're telling the truth, if it's getting this quality in the viewport in real time and nothing is pre-rendered, there's no post-processing, there's no fancy tricks, then it says here that Univah is doing something technically significant. Because it's one thing to say our renderer can eventually produce photorealistic frames. It's another thing to say the editor itself is displaying the final quality looking image interactively while you're working. That potentially changes the product considerably. Wow. And that's exactly what our entire moat is taking the real-time viewport and making that the final render. Instead of having low quality previews in the viewport, we want the viewport to show you the final quality all the time at high frame rates. Okay. So it's telling us here the traditional workflow is typically edit, wait for render, inspect, change something, render again. Whereas the goal of the Univah Film Engine is essentially edit and see the results immediately. Okay. So um, there you go. So that's why it's saying that the Univers Film Engine is so impressive. And it comes down to this 25 to 50 million pre-seed valuation because of the fact that we have a complete licensing system. It's already a commercial infrastructure. We've already made it so that literally anybody right now can download this product and use it. We have feature gating already established. I mean, we're just so different from what a lot of these GitHub people do. This is not a GitHub repo. This is a commercial product, which means you can buy the Univah Film Engine right now. You buy Univah Lite, you install it on your software, you install it on your computer, and when you're using Univah Lite, you're going to have the option to upgrade to Univah Pro. All of that is already done. We have already established a system to upgrade from Lite to Pro with a click of a button, and it just makes all the hidden features available. So everything is done. We're just now asking for an investor so that we can make Univah complete. We are asking for an investor, for a strategic partner to invest in us so that we can potentially put the Univah Film Engine on Apple computers. Right now, it's only for Windows, but we're getting a lot of people that are asking for Univah to be on Apple computers. So, with a $2 million investment, we could potentially do that. We can put the Univah Film Engine on Windows and Apple computers. It's already on Windows. We can put it on Apple computers. Also, we need the investment to add more features. The remaining features that have not been added yet, I'll hire more developers so that we can add those features. That's it. But all we're doing is adding features that we don't yet have the ability to add because we're short on developers. I have to hire more developers so that we can add the remaining features. That's it, guys. But in terms of like the infrastructure, everything else is set up. Everything else is ready to deploy. Everything else is ready to go. The software is already commercially deployed. It's already installed on 15 computers at Houston City College. And we can update our systems, update their systems. Everything else is done, guys. Like all we're just adding features. That's it. That's all. But in terms of making it a commercial product, it's already that. So we're in a really great position. It's already de-risks. There is no risk. There is no, oh, do people want this? We've already seen that people want it. So the risk is already gone. It's just now about expanding this, about scaling, and it's about marketing. We need to market the product. We need to tell people that this product exists. We need to really dominate the market through very good marketing and showing real projects made in Univah. That's what we're going to be doing with the funding. Thank you.